Hey there guys, happy Valentine's Day. I'm Lee Williamson and I'm from Elemental Concept. Today I'm going to teach you how to rotoscope. There'll be two methods. One is with the Bezier tool to mask and the other one is the rotoscoping tool in After Effects. Both are useful. One is quite painful. If you don't like my first method, feel free to scrub forward to the second method. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's dig in. Right, so let's bring in our footage. So I've recorded Richard in the office. I asked him to
jump in the air.
As it says, I asked him to jump in the air. So at the moment, I didn't record this camera. I didn't actually have an easel, so I did it with my own hands. Unfortunately, it's very shaky. So the first thing we need to do is stabilize the camera. I'm going to go into my panel over here where it says tracker. I'm going to say track motion. And I'm going to find somewhere where there's two high contrasting values in my video clip to track to. So let's see, where will that high contrasting value be? Why don't we try over here? This plastic paneling here is quite nice and white and the gray is a lot darker, so I can use that. There we go. So the middle one is where it tracks to, and this one's pretty much where the tracker just does a little bit of like an area search. So now that that's done, all I have to do is make sure I'm at the beginning of my timeline and press analyze forward, and it will track to the corner. Jump, Richard, jump. Woo! Cool. Right, now that's recorded the positional value. I need to now create a null object. Press edit target, choose the null object, and press apply. And what it does is it takes that positional value and now records it to null. So if I press U on my keyboard and you see a positional value, the null now has all that tracking data to it. Then I'll have to create a new camera, click OK, parent the camera to the null, so now the camera moves the same way the null does, and then check these little 3D boxes on, and now it should track the video footage. Not the greatest track, but you know, for these purposes it'll do. So I'm going to click select everything. I'm going to go Control Shift C, and I'll call it tracked data. Now you notice it's kind of moving up to acquire for the tracking, so I can scale it to 110, move it down. Let me just scrub the timeline and see if there's anything. There we go. Let's move that down a little bit more. Now let's check. Play it over. Perfectly fine. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to export this out. I'm going to just add it to my render queue, and I'm going to save it as lossless AVI. I'm on a PC, by the way. Right, I'll get back to you in a sec. So now I'm going to be bringing in that rendered clip. So we go into Richard jump color correct. We drag it into my comp, and now we have Richard jumping into the air. Cool. So there are two methods to rotoscoping. The first one's quite laborious, but you know what, it's worth showing because we need to see which method works for you. So we're going to use our Bezier tool over here, the pen tool, and now I could trace over the whole character and create a mask, but it's actually easier if you do them limb by limb. So I could do a path around this arm and that arm, the chest and the head and the legs, and then I can move the mask around accordingly. So let's give you an example. I can go to the head and I can draw a path around here. And let's just say we're going to get and the trick is to keep your path as simple as possible, because you're going to be going back and editing this path frame by frame, which can be quite painful. And the thing I forgot to do is just duplicate that layer, CTRL-V, drag one underneath it, let's delete that mask, and put the transparency down just so you can see what we are cutting out. I'll just lock that layer. So if I wanted to edit that mask, I can just press U on the keyboard and go to the path, select it again. I can drag on my keyboard. Now I can also, if I just want to edit just this side, I can actually break my selection. So if you hold down, great, when I'm actually going on a Mac and a PC every single day, I kind of get confused between my command and my control. If you hold down your control if you're on a PC, command if you're on a Mac, you can break the arcs of your selection until you're happy with it. So that's really dodgy, but hey, that's fine. So now I can go to, let's say, the chest, and with my Bezier tool, and I can draw the chest in. All right, let me just put the opacity all the way up so I can actually see what I'm doing. Go back to that mask again. You can click, if you were halfway through it, you can just click on the last point you were on, or try to. Let's highlight that point. Press on the path, and it should. Oh, having a good day, yeah. Oh, there we go, that's attached it. And I can draw out that chest like that. And now what you'll notice is it's created multiple paths. And all I have to do is just put back down again. Is keep on doing this until I've got the whole entire body. So I'm just going to do this really fast and dirty, guys, as I really don't want to be spending the whole entire day drawing a path. And then click off it, click back on it again, and we can draw Richard's arm. Fantastic, we've got Richard's arm in there. Click off it again, click back on, and oh boy, this is boring. Okay, click off it again. Yeah, I totally forgot to even get Richard's foot in, so we'll go back to that in a sec, and I'll show you how to do that. Now this method is probably a lot better to use when you've got maybe a close-up of a character's face, or maybe a simpler thing, like maybe a finger going over a mobile phone. You might want to use the path selection. Maybe not in the case of using the body, but the reason I'm showing you this is because I want to show both methods so that you can find the one that suits you. So I've done this totally wrong. I could just add in some extra path there. I'll go back on my Bezier tool. I can hold down Alt and I can unbreak that path and get that foot back inside there. Okay, so you've got all these masks. It would be very helpful that you label them. So if that is the What is that? That's the head. And this path. Is a chest, so you double click on that mask, press enter, and say chest. What is this? The left arm. What is that? That's the right arm. What's this? Left leg. Left leg. And what's this one? Right leg, I'm assuming. Naturally. Right leg. Cool. So if you go into your search here and just type in path, then you'll have all your values of your paths, just so you can see them. Now, the best thing to do is, all you have to do is, you don't actually have to drop in any keyframes. You just need to go kind of forward. Let's say we go forward 10 frames, and we can take that left arm and we can just select a whole bunch of points and move it where his hand is. Until you're happy with your selection. And I'm doing a fantastic job of this. Absolutely not. And you can stick the hand over there. Actually, I've done a crap job, but hey, we get the point. And then we can pick up the head mask, and we can even just take the whole entire head mask and just move it around. And you know, if we've done a clean enough mask, it would be fine. And now you get the idea that you know what, I didn't even drop a keyframe down. I should actually always remember to record first, guys. Don't do what I did. And you know what, if I just go back to the beginning, I try this again. So we're going to drop down some keyframes. We're going to move 10 keyframes forward, and now I will try that again. Yeah, so make sure you record those keyframes first. It would be very helpful to you. Don't do what Lee did. Okay. Select over there. Bring that down. Hold down Control. Break that arc. Now the idea is you should actually have less points as possible, so that when you are doing something like this, it's a lot easier to crop out. So don't do what Lee did. I can press on the head and just move the head around, so you can just take the whole selection down. And now what you'll notice is it tweens in the extra for you. So if I had to turn this layer off, we're pretty much masking the video. Now this is a very laborious way, so we're going to jump on straight to the much cooler, easier method. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to turn this back up to 100% opacity. And there's a function that I found the other day which just blew me away. It's called the Rotobrush. You can click on the Rotobrush, double click on the movie, because the Rotobrush has to be inside the layer to apply the Rotobrush. Now if you hold down Alt on your keyboard, not Alt, Control on your keyboard, you can scale up your Rotobrush, and all I have to do is paint on him and it starts to pick it up just like a Photoshop wand. So if I hold down Control again, bring it down smaller, I can just literally paint down to his hand, and it'll get in his hand, paint down to his hand. Try that again. And let's make that wand a little bit larger. Cool. Now to get rid of a selection, you hold down Alt on the keyboard and you paint out, and it cuts it out. So let's go to Richard's face. I'm just going to paint inside his face, and it's going to pick him up, and then just paint over there. Paint again. Paint again. Okay, now for smaller selections, you can go into this thing called Refine Edge. Now this is great for when you've got that kind of fuzzy featheriness on someone's hair and you want to pick up the finer detail. Now let's just make sure that we got his shoes also sorted out. So painting his shoes, painting his shoes. Hold down Alt to get rid of that bit there. Okay, so we have gotten them rotoscoped. Now you'll notice when you scrub forward on the keyboard, this actually remembers quite a lot of the footage, but you'll notice it doesn't remember some too. So as you move forward, by the way, let me just show these. There are these little options to view it in the way that best suits you. So maybe have it in this view if you want to see what you're cutting out. And I can just add him in there, and then I can scrub forward. So if you hold Control Shift arrow, forward arrow, it should jump 10 keyframes, or just Control arrow, and that'll be a single keyframe at a time. So it'll just be an easier way of scrubbing forward on the keyboard. So if I go maybe 10 frames, I can paint again on his arm and see if I can get that in. Cool. And let's just go another 10 keyframes forward and see if it's got everything in the arm there. It hasn't quite got everything in the arm there, so we can paint over there. We've got that arm in. Move another 10 keyframes on the keyboard. Now you notice it's dropping keyframes wherever we've painted. Rotobrush is very much like a muscle memory. It's actually remembering essentially color selections, very much like a wand inside Photoshop would do. So unfortunately, the one downside of this seems to be that the more you paint, the more it fills in. So sometimes it ends up doing the opposite of what you wanted to do when it's has too much memory, which is a strange one, which means you end up having to drop more keyframes down. But just to show you there, so I might need to go back there and just quickly paint his hand in there. And we've got his hand in there. Hold down Alt and not Control. I'm on a PC. Command, make it tinier. And paint that off. And let's paint that back on again. Smaller selection, a little bit more. Gosh, painful. Okay, so you get the idea. You just keep going through your footage and seeing wherever it's not working and painting it in. So, you know, I might go to Shani's armpit over here and go, hold down Control, make the brush a little bit smaller, hold down Alt and cut out that bit by his armpit. And then we add in the arm and you name it, and it keeps going. Now, one thing you've got to bear in mind is when you try to render this cropped footage out, it won't actually render out correctly, because there's one more thing you need to do. If I double click on that footage to go back into the layer version, there's something called freeze. So it essentially caches in your rotoscope. Please press this. That's the only way it's going to render out correctly. So press freeze and it should start rendering out your video. I'm just going to say stop because I haven't completed it, but I'm going to just dive forward to the completed version. and show you what to do next. Right, so good old Richard is now being rotoscoped out. So just to show you, there he is, jumping, happy in the air. And if I press U on the keyboard, you can actually see all the keyframes where the rotor has been added. U back on the keyboard. Now you have a bunch of selections here on your FX control palette. So, you know, you can feather out your selection, for refine, smooth. You can even add motion blur to his jump. Now I'm just going to turn all these off. What I prefer to do to clean up this dodgy pixelated look on Richard is I can go and get a choker. Let's see, what type of choker do I want? I'll go for a matte choker as opposed to a simple choker. Now what a choker does is it kind of is almost like a selection, expand and contract selection in Photoshop. So when you pull up your choke, it kind of sucks in the selection, or if you pull it down onto minus numbers, it expands the choke. So I'm going to basically suck it in a little bit, and you'll really notice how much smoother it is. There's other selections here like geometric softness. This is kind of like your feather tool, and I can feather it a little bit. And you know what, I mean, for such a low quality footage, that's pretty decent. So there we have Richard. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-comp Richard. So we have a pre-comped Richard, and we're going to drag in the original video. And as you notice now, here is the duplicate. And we can do some nice fun stuff with the Richard. So why don't we take Richard and scale him down? And we're going to have Richard standing on Richard's head. Cool. Now he's jumping. Now the problem is he's not exactly moving with Richard. So why don't we track the video footage of Richard? So we go back into our tracking, and we can say track motion, and we could track Richard's head. So let's make a selection around Richard's head. Let's track his head. There we go. And say apply and OK. And then we can create a new null object and say, did I actually even track the damn thing? Track motion. Let's try that again. Track motion. Let's drag it around his head again. And let's just go with the original tracker one. We can create a new null object. Press edit target, choose null object, track information goes there, press apply and OK. Now the null object has the tracking data, and all we need to do now is parent little Richard. Let's just call that little Rich. Parent him to the null. And now little Richard should move. Wait. That's really strange. The tracking data didn't even go onto the null. I think I forgot to press. Of course, I forgot to press that. It has to track him first. Woohoo! I'm so happy. Come on. Right, fantastic, it's tracked. So we go to edit target, we can choose that null, and we just say apply and okay. And now that information is parented. So now little Richard should jump at the same time. Now he's not in the right place, so let's just move little Richard back to the top of big Richard's head and jump for us. Woo, we're both so happy. Wait, see the way he lands? Maybe we could just move that a little bit to the right. There we go. And jump. Woo! Now we could duplicate little Richard. And okay, let's just delete that. And we can take another Richard and let's just call him, let's delete the other one, Rich 2. Okay, press S on the keyboard, we can scale him down, and we're not going to track him, he's just going to jump on the couch and he's all happy. Now maybe we want to make that a little bit more realistic, so we can use a warp tool on the main footage. So let's go find warp. Where is warp? Warp. Look for mesh warp. Here we go. And we can drag mesh warp on here. And we can make some more columns. There we go. And press U on the keyboard. Let's find out mesh warp. And we can click on distort mesh. And we can go forward to right before it's about to jump. Tell you what, let's just put this on fast draft because this is running really slowly. Okay. And right before he jumps, we can pull this down a little bit. And now the couch goes in, squeaky, and boom, into the air it goes. And we can make that couch flip up a little bit. Boing. We probably wanted to go back down again before he hits there. And he raises his toes just about to hit it. Boom. Squish. Squish. And we can put it back up again. Where does it land? Here we go. Are you ready, Richard? 1, 2, 3. I love Oprah. Woo! There we go. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you. Bye.